World of Warcraft Midnight marks the second chapter of the World Soul saga, and returns us to the more familiar territories of Quel'Danas. But this is not the homecoming we would have wanted. The Sunwell is under siege, and Xal'atath's devouring host will stop at nothing to claim it. In this video, we're recapping, summarising and breaking down everything that happens across the Midnight campaign. Every key moment, every major cutscene, and of course every twist and turn. Whether you blasted through the quests without reading a word, want to relive the storyline, or just want to stay up to date with Warcraft lore and the World Soul saga, this video has you covered. Before we dive in, let's do a quick recap of the War Within, because to understand where Midnight takes us, we need to know where we've been. The War Within, of course, took us deep into the subterranean world of Khazalgar, but what began as a journey to answer the Radiant Song quickly became something far more dangerous. Xal'atath had been watching us, plotting out her schemes from the shadows, and when the time was right, she unleashed the Nerubians of Aj-Kahet onto Dalaran, consuming the city and siphoning its power into a single ancient relic known as the Dark Heart. The Dark Heart isn't a weapon in any conventional sense. It acts as a vessel that can absorb virtually any form of energy, holding that power inside until it is ready to be spent on whatever the holder desires. Xal'atath spent the entirety of the War Within filling that vessel. She drained the essence of Dalaran into it before turning her attention to Shadowfall, where she siphoned the power of Beladar, the star-like object at the heart of that cavern. When we finally cornered her at the Priory of the Sacred Flame, Ilaria fired an arrow that cracked the Dark Heart. Xal'atath then retreated into the Void, and then had the artifact repaired by Jaster Gallywix down in Undermine, where his goblins used the black blood of the old gods to restore it to its former glory. But during those events, things didn't quite go to plan down in the goblin capital. Gallywix's clumsiness with the relic led to it being stolen by the Shadowguard Ethereals, totally changing the course of the War Within storyline. Thousands of years ago, way before she ever came to Azeroth, Xal'atath served as the harbinger of Dimensius the All-Devouring, one of the most destructive Void Lords to have ever existed in our universe. She was present when Dimensius launched his assault to devour the ethereal homeworld of Koresh, and she watched as some of those ethereals who were broken by this devastation pledged their allegiance to the Void Lord to become his servants. Dimensius would then be shattered into fragments after the planet of Koresh was destroyed by its own people to stop the Void Lord. But his fanatical followers, now known as the Shadowguard Ethereals, spent thousands of years travelling across the universe, hunting for those scattered fragments, and of course doing so with one singular goal: to bring him back. Back in present day, and with the Dark Heart now in their possession, they finally had the means to do that. So when the Shadowguard used the repaired relic to begin the revival of Dimensius inside Manaforge Omega, Xal'atath decided this was the time to make her move. She offered us her help, her knowledge, her power, and her rituals to storm into the Manaforge and put a stop to the summoning of Dimensius. And of course we took this offer because we didn't really have another choice. But what we didn't know is that Xal'atath had her own agenda the whole time. Together we fought our way into the heart of Manaforge Omega, pushed Dimensius back, and then at the critical moment, Xal'atath sealed the Void Lord's essence inside of the Dark Heart. Her plan had nothing to do with us, we were just a small pawn in her cosmic game of chess. With the essence of a Void Lord now contained within it, the Dark Heart then possessed way more power than anything she could have achieved on her own. Xal'atath performed one final ritual, channeling every ounce of that accumulated power outwards, and created the Voidspire, a citadel-like fortress located on Voidstorm, an ancient planet that now exists as a launching point where her devouring host can stage their attack on the Sunwell. With a portal linking the two worlds, the devouring host then poured through and on to the Isle of Quel'Danas, pushing the defending Blood Elves to breaking point. But just before all seemed lost at the Sunwell, the Vanguard of Light arrives to save the day. This is where Midnight begins. The initial call to arms comes to us in Dornogal, where an apparition of Lady Liadrin tells us of the dire situation back in the Eastern Kingdoms. With the invading devouring host, the Sunwell is in danger. She needs us there right away. When we arrive, Liadrin sends us to round up some familiar faces that are currently fending off the void creatures on the front line. Among them we need to find Farin Lothar, Lothraxion, and Alonzus Fowl. At the same time, Turelion tasks us with tracking down Arator and lending our skills at pushing back the void forces that are already spilling across the island. This is quite an important story beat here, as when we find Arator, he seems to be struggling with his relationship with the light, something that develops much further as we get into this story. With everyone gathered, we regroup at Sunstrider Rise where Lor'themar Theron is waiting for us. Turelion and the Vanguard immediately make for the main gates of Quel'Danas to hold the line against the attacking Void, while we head the other way with Arator. Lor'themar has asked us to escort the remaining civilians out of the carnage before the Void swallows them up. Once the evacuation is done, we then meet Turelion at the North Gate. Arator sends us back into the thick of it to bring down the Void pylons that are dragging the devouring host through the portal connecting the Voidstorm to the Isle of Quel'Danas. It's during this task when the harbour erupts. Xal'atath has called forward a colossal void behemoth. We fall back to the Vanguard of Light where Turelion asks us to clear out the invading ethereals while Liadrin sends us hunting for weapons. With everything recovered, we converge on the harbour to take the fight to the behemoth. The Vanguard of Light fights with everything it has. We try to push the devouring host back by channeling light through the recovered weapons, but it's not enough, and the void keeps on coming. This is the moment when Xal'atath herself appears at the docks.
The old warrior thinks this will be his crowning achievement.
Show yourself, witch!
So brave in the light. How will you fare lost in the void? You are only fragile mortals. You never had a chance.
Lady Liadrin then orders a retreat as we are pushed back through the woodland towards the only place that still gives us a fighting chance, the Sunwell. After the retreat, we begin clearing out the invading void creatures that are attacking the Sunwell as the Vanguard of Light begins a ritual. They are pouring the Sunwell's power outwards towards the storm above the island. The flow of light energy bursts into the sky, seemingly stopping the flow of devouring host from travelling to Azeroth.
Another miracle. Light be praised.
It isn't over, Liadrin.
The defenders of Azeroth have seemingly managed to drive back the void, but as Arator points out, this spell at the Sunwell might not hold out for long. Lor'themar then requests our presence in the Sanctum of Light in Silvermoon, where the leaders of the Blood Elves are preparing for a war against Xal'atath. We arrive to a city still in chaos after the attack by the devouring host. The Vanguard of Light and the Blood Elves are seemingly working together to bolster the city's defences, but the tension between the two forces is clear as day.
And I am telling you that it is still not enough. Only by the faith of our forces is the Sunwell holding back the void.
It's certainly an uneasy alliance built out of a necessity rather than trust. Lor'themar then wastes no time at putting us straight to work, but we are tasked with something a little more unexpected. He informs us that there is a problem with a wild growth known as the Light Bloom. The Light Bloom is a blossoming growth of light-infused plant life that exists across the Eversong woods. Up until this point in time, Lor'themar tells us that it has been nothing more than a minor curiosity for the Blood Elven botanists. But since the recent energy flux that has just happened at the Sunwell, the Light Bloom has basically gone mad and is now uncontrollably spreading across the Eversong forest. Lor'themar asks us to travel south to Fairbreeze village, asking us to investigate this Light Bloom issue further. But just as we set off, Turelion and Lor'themar continue their frosty encounters whilst discussing what on earth has just happened at the Sunwell.
My thoughts are with the Sunwell. I did not expect it to react with such force.
You ask, and the light provides. Need it be more complicated than that?
Perhaps you should save your words for when they are asked for, High Exarch. I suspect they would be better received.
When we arrive in Fairbreeze, we get our first proper look at this so-called light bloom, a vast living bloom of plant life that apparently emerged when the Sunwell was restored many years ago. We are then tasked with restoring some order to Fairbreeze, investigating disturbances, rounding up displaced lynxes, and dealing with a particularly feral lynx that has been attacking the outskirts of the village. Whilst we are questing here, we notice that light bloom creatures have begun popping up in the growths. These aggressive creatures are attacking the Eversong locals. We then report back to Fairbreeze with this information, and there we meet up with a familiar face, Orwenna. Orwenna has also been investigating the light bloom and asks us to follow a trail deeper into the overgrowth. Whilst we are investigating, Orwenna tells us that the creatures appearing across Eversong are similar to a race of people she lives alongside back in her homeland of Harandar. We then make our way towards a runestone, but at the same time we also notice that this animated plant life and these corrupted light-infused creatures are moving across the area with unnatural aggression. Orwenna asks us to cut down some of the light bloom creatures and examine the growths more closely. Whilst we're doing that, we find Arator standing completely still, caught under what seems like a spell cast by something lurking in the trees. Orwenna recognises the being immediately. It's a Rutani. We pull Arator back to the safety of the nearby runestone, and Orwenna explains the situation.
A Rutani, creatures from my homeland. They should not be here.
But the suspicious part of all of this is that they have never ventured above ground, and the aggression of the ones we have just encountered are unlike anything she has seen before. She then begins channeling on a strange seed we recovered from the overgrowth, trying to draw answers from inside of it. While she is performing that ritual, the Rutani react extremely aggressively and begin swarming to stop her. We hold them back while she works, but what she then finds out only deepens this mystery even further. The Rutani are actively trying to spread this light bloom, and she has no idea why. We then report back to Lorthamar and Tyrellian, informing them that Fairbreeze is safe for now, but the light bloom is teeming with creatures that are being driven mad. Lorthamar then tells us that he has called upon the help of the Void Elf, Magister Umbric. He wants to see if he can help us investigate the Voidstorm, so he sends us to find Umbric in Tranquillion. Before we depart from this light bloom growth, Orwenna informs us that she is going to return back to Harandar for more answers.
I know nothing of what threatens from the sky, but I know much of what threatens from below. I will continue to explore this. When you are ready to examine the root of the issue, return to me.
On the road to Tranquillion, which sounds like a song name, we find Arator standing by a bridge in the forest, looking down at something beneath him. He's found a body. We search it for clues and find a notebook, but several pages have been torn clean out of it. With more questions than answers, we carry it with us to find Umbric in Tranquillion. When we arrive, Umbric recognises the notebook immediately. The body must have been of one of his former students, Cassia. She had been out in the field conducting research of her own, and the pages that remain in the notebook list a series of locations she had been investigating. Umbric then asks us to follow her trail and see if we can finish what she started, while Arator takes to the streets of Tranquillion to question the locals and see what they know about the death of Cassia. The picture that then emerges from these investigations points towards something none of them wanted to hear: the Twilight's Blade. This cult isn't new to Umbric or the Blood Elves. Born from the remnants of the Twilight's hammer, the Twilight's Blade pledged themselves to Xal'atath's service a few years ago. Recently they infiltrated the faction capitals of Orgrimmar and Stormwind, attempting to recruit from the shadows. But they were discovered and driven out of the cities, retreating to the Twilight Highlands, where a temporary alliance between the two elven factions was needed to bring them back in check. But now it seems they have found their way into the Eversong forest. Umbric then takes us outside of the village to investigate 3 mysterious nodes. Each one tears open a void rift when we interact with it, pulling through void entities that we then cut down while Umbric collects samples from them. Back in his study, we sort through the evidence and Umbric tells us we need to inform the governor of Tranquillion about what we have found. So we set off to find Lord Antenorian. But the following meeting with Antenorian doesn't quite sit right.
A cult? Well, that is a most serious accusation. I shall have it looked into, but I'm glad you're here. I need your assistance with something.
He then redirects us towards a different task entirely, asking us to meet one of his scouts out in the woods for information on enemies lurking nearby. When we arrive, we find Arator and Umbric already there, and they are caught in a trap laid by a member of the Twilight's Blade. We fight our way out of it and get everyone back to the safety of Tranquillion. We then return to find Umbric's study has been completely ransacked by the Twilight's Blade. Every piece of research he had gathered on the Voidstorm above Silvermoon has been either stolen or destroyed. He then asks us to dig through the mess and see if we can find anything salvageable. And that's the moment when Antenorian walks through the door. This is where he drops that suspicious act entirely. He and his loyalists have joined the Twilight's Blade.
You said you wanted them safe!
And I do. Look at the sky, Magister. You know what resides there. You know the fear it brings. The uncertainty. The Twilight's Blade will stand on the side of survival. Won't you?
I will not bend to you, or the Void!
Tranquillion will join us, or die. And you with it.
That is when the attack begins. The Twilight's Blade pours into Tranquillion, and we're sent into the streets to push them back, protect the civilians, and bring down the cult's leaders one by one. When the village is finally secured, we try to find Umbric, but he has already slipped away into the forest to hunt down Antenorian himself. For more information, we then track down Lord Antenorian's secretary, and it is here where we find a set of invasion plans. It's a map marking key locations across Eversong Forest where the Twilight's Blade intend to extend their reach. Umbric tells us that the cult has retreated back to their base in the ruins of Deathhome, but also tells us that Windrunner Village has been marked for infiltration, so he sends us there to investigate. The village is eerily silent when we arrive. Arator asks us to bring 6 broken ranger constructs back online to strengthen up the village's defences, and then Umbric himself attempts a ritual to reverse a nearby void rift, but it soon fails. Without Cassia's missing notes, he doesn't have enough information on how to deal with the Voidstorm and the void rifts across Eversong, and of course these are most likely being kept somewhere in the Twilight's Blade stronghold in Deathhome. We then make our way south to the ruins, where Arator, Umbric and Valeera Sanguinar are waiting for us. Before we can even settle on a plan, we find ourselves watching a confrontation from the shadows.
All will be devoured. The forces of the Void are gathering from across the cosmos, eager to feed upon this world. Soon, the true invasion will begin, and the mortals will never see it coming. Make ready.
Mistress, do not forsake me.
You did well, my faithful servant. But alas, I have no further use for you.
But I...
Now abandoned by the very force he had pledged himself to, Antenorian retreats into the nearby Shadow Enclave to hide from us champions. Valeera then tells us that she has tracked his location and asks us to storm into the cavern alongside her. After preparations, we enter into the Shadow Enclave, thin the ranks of the remaining Twilight's Blade protecting their leader, and finally take him down, recovering the stolen pages from Cassia's notebook in the process. We then regroup and Umbric is satisfied that the immediate Twilight's Blade threat has been dealt with. He then agrees to lend his support to Lorthamar, turning his attention back to his studies on the Voidstorm. We then contact Lorthamar and Turellian again to inform them of the situation across Eversong, but Lorthamar has a more urgent message for us instead. The Lightbloom has completely overrun Suncrown Village, and the people still inside need our help immediately. We make our way over and meet Lady Liadrin and Arator outside the village. Once we have a plan, we push straight in, pulling survivors out of this encroachment and cutting back the Lightbloom wherever we can to stop the spread of it. As we work through the village, the story of what happened here begins to come together. The Farstriders of Suncrown heard a mysterious crash deep in the forest, and they of course left to investigate it. While they were gone, the Rutani moved in, spreading the Lightbloom across the village as fast as they could. Lorthamar pulls us back to Sinter Antilla's outpost to speak with Ranger General Halduron Brightwing, and when we arrive, the source of that loud crash becomes immediately obvious. A massive felled tree lies across the forest floor, and a scout confirms that Amani trolls have pushed into Eversong.
If this were deliberate, they would have attacked once Suncrown fell. There's more to this.
We investigate, sabotage their operations, and regroup at the camp to share what we have found. What Arator pieces together changes the outlook here. The Amani are felling trees, yes, but not to reclaim the land from the Blood Elves. They are crafting weapons from the Light Bloom. But Arator then questions what exactly are they preparing for? The answer to this apparently lies in Wathanan crypts, so we make our way over there to meet up with Arator. We meet at the entrance and pull down the wards to head inside. When we sneak our way into the crypts, we find 2 trolls and some captured members of the Twilight's Blade, revealing that this is the enemy the trolls are fending off. The Twilight's Blade must have infiltrated Zul'Aman as well as Eversong.
You invaded our land. You killed my people. For what? To conquer? To claim what was never yours? This is what you fear, isn't it? Not the blade, but what it contains. The light. Some say a comfort, but so easily honed into this. There is the fear. What do you think? Anything to say? I didn't think so.
We push deeper into the crypts in pursuit of the troll we have just seen. We eventually find one of his lieutenants, who we take down quite quickly. But this troll, known as Zul'Aman, is nowhere to be found. Outside, Arator stands quietly for a moment before telling us his plan. He wants to speak to his father Turelion and make him see reason. The Amani and the Blood Elves are not each other's enemies right now. When we regroup at the Amani Pass, that conversation hasn't happened yet. Lor'themar and Arator are already at each other's necks over the situation.
If you will not fight, get out of my way.
This bloodshed, it's madness. Where is my father? He must see this by now.
We're sent in to stop it before it goes too far. Turelion and Zul'Aman then come face to face, and when Arator steps between the two, he is caught in the crossfire.
So self-righteous. So blinded by your light. You fight only to conquer.
Father! He is beaten.
Tell me, all this death, denying us our birthright, was it to appease the elves you cow to, or was it to feed your soulless vanity? This is what I think of you and your light.
My son. Here, let me...
No! Just... no.
Shaken after the fight, we return to Silvermoon to rest and plan our next move. When we return to Silvermoon, the Council are discussing the various threats we are facing across Azeroth, but they give us an option to choose where to go next. We can continue this war against the Void in either Harandar, Silvermoon City, or Zul'Aman. Of course, the underlying storyline is pushing us towards Zul'Aman, so that is where we are going next. Once we are ready, Lor'themar sends us back out to the Troll Lands to meet up with Lady Liadrin. The fragile piece that we kind of managed to form at the gates of Zul'Aman is already falling apart when we arrive. The Blood Elves have forced the Amani to surrender their light bloom weapons and return to their lands. Liadrin asks us to try and defuse the situation before things kick off again, but as soon as the tensions begin to snap, a void beast turns up, giving us all a more immediate problem to deal with. In this chaos, a new character arrives to save the day.
Sister? Did you forget I'm the leader of Zul'Aman? Is that why you did not listen to me?
Hold! We are not here to fight!
Then why you be here? Tell me quickly, before I slice your head from your neck, elf.
After informing Zul'Jara that we have arrived to defend Quel'Danas from the Twilight's blade, she then grants us passage through the gates and onto the other side. But Zul'Jara does not permit the Blood Elf army to pass through, just us and Liadrin. We walk through and immediately see that the Twilight's blade and their ogre leader Mordoon have already invaded and are attacking the Amani. Liadrin sees this as the perfect opportunity. If we fight alongside the Amani against the Void here in Zul'Aman, it might be enough to begin burying the hostility between the two races. Zul'Jara accepts our offer of help and sends us to sound the Amani war drums across Zul'Aman, calling the rest of their armies forward to join the fight. After doing that, we return to an altar in the middle of the city, and it's here that we realise that the other armies have not rallied, and Zul'Jara doesn't understand why. The Twilight's Blade leader Mordoon is way too powerful for the Amani forces that have already joined the fight. So Zul'Jara makes an important call. We need to focus on getting the civilians to safety. At the same time, Zul'Jan is also troubled by the fact the Elders didn't answer their cry for help. The war drums sounded, yes, but the Elders never came. Zul'Jan wants us to rally the Elders ourselves and tell them to evacuate the city. We then move through Zul'Aman, evacuating as many Amani as we can, whilst also thinning the Twilight's Blade ranks and locating the Elders as we go. After that, we meet back up with Zul'Jan to try and evacuate his uncle, Lower Speaker Kinduru. During this encounter, it is revealed that the Lower abandoned the Amani decades ago. The Lower are spiritual beings that are revered across all of troll culture. They are powerful and often spiritual entities that the trolls call upon in times of need. For the Amani of Zul'Aman, 4 Lower stand above all of the others: the Bear, the Lynx, the Dragonhawk, and the Eagle. When the Amani's former warlord and leader Zul'Jin captured the 4 of them and twisted them into corrupted avatars that were unleashed during the Burning Crusade, the Lowers stopped answering the Amani's call, a broken relationship that has never returned to its former state. With the Elders finally on the move, Zul'Jan sends us to recover light bloom weapons that have been seized by the Twilight's Blade, and also asks us to put out fires that have been started to burn the Amani's light wood stockpiles. We are then told to give these light bloom weapons to discouraged Amani fighters scattered across Zul'Aman in hope that this will put some fight back into them. With the city now in a more stable position, Zul'Jara asks us to use the Lightwood Ballista to tear down the void barrier that's protecting Mordoon. We manage to successfully bring it down, and Liadrin and Zul'Jara go straight for him.
Foolish Amani, you have already lost. Your city is in ruins. No one is coming to help you, not even your gods. Xal'atath relishes in your anguish and will exalt us when your empire falls. Don't worry. Your end will come soon.
Despite the immediate frustration of letting Mordoon go, Zul'Jara is impressed with our help. What she saw from Liadrin and us champions today was enough to win her over. She then invites us to Amani's village to meet with the council and discuss the best way to face the Twilight's blade across the rest of Zul'Aman. During that meeting, some of the other tribes there express some of their own more personal concerns, but it is immediately cut down and the meeting's focus is redirected back to the Twilight's blade. Inside the village, as Zul'Jara checks on the refugees who fled at Zul'Aman, she opens up about the heavy burden the Amani have been carrying since the crazy warlord Zul'Jin's death. They are now a more fractured people, where the tribes have splintered and there is no clear centre to hold them together. We observe this as we travel to meet the leaders of the other tribes. Then their uncle Kinduru tells us some important information.
They may listen now to the right voice, someone on the path of the Hashe.
Why do you think they will speak to us now?
You saved your brother, and you defended the right to lead as Zul'Jin's granddaughter, all on your own. If anyone can get to the lower and get answers, it is you.
Then I will go. For our people, and for you, Uncle.
Zul'Jara doesn't hide her skepticism to us and Liadrin. On the surface, she believes the path of the Hashe is little more than folklore, pilgrimage to ancient temples and long-forgotten rituals, all passed down through generations of myth. But the situation is dire, and of course desperate times call for desperate measures. So we head out into the forests in search of the Temple of Akilzon. When we arrive at the foot of the mountains, the Twilight's Blade have driven a race called the Naldin into the surrounding territory. These nomadic creatures are disturbing the roosting eagles and hunting them for food. So, again seeking approval from Zul'Jara, Liadrin sends us in to thin their numbers and cut down their leaders, while Zul'Jara explains the ritual required to reach the lower. She tells us that fires must be lit at the shrines along the path to the temple before any communication can begin. With the Naldin threat dealt with and the lower shrines now relit, something shifts in the wildlife around us. The native eagles begin to move towards the top of the temple. Zul'Jara suggests that this might be an invitation and asks us to climb to the top. When we arrive to the summit, we find Lady Liadrin and Zul'Jara arguing over their respective races' previous history between each other.
Now you try to flatter me. I know why you're here. To protect your precious golden fields of Eversong. Do not pretend to care about me or their money.
Enough, Zul'Jara. I admit that my past keeps me from empathizing fully with your people. I told you that I fought against your grandfather. But I did not tell you that he held me captive and tortured me. And tortured and killed many of my peers. That part of my past led me down a path I am not proud of.
They refocus their efforts and we then place an offering at the temple steps. Before we go any further, we must prove ourselves to be worthy of the Lower's presence. We must complete a trial. The trial is simple. It is a sacred leap from the top of the temple. With no other choice, well, that's being a bit dramatic because I can bubble to stop the fall damage, but Zul'Jara doesn't need to know that. With no other choice, we jump.
Well done, Zul'Jara. Kinduru was right about you.
All this time. You were right here. Why didn't you answer us?
Because of your grandfather, Zul'Jin, and that snake of a witch doctor, Malakras. Long ago, we Loa would choose a champion among the Amani, a Hashe, to wield our power for the good of their people. Zul'Jin wanted to use that power again, not to serve his people, but to slaughter his enemies. We would not grant such a blessing. So he had Malakras steal it from us and make their own false, abhorrent Hashe.
But our own champions raided the temple city and stopped them.
So now all Amani must suffer for my grandfather's mistakes? if you don't help us fight the cult.
You passed my trial, Zul'Jara. You have my favor. Now you just need the others.
Need them for what?
To become the first Hashe in generations. What else? Prove to the lower that you are not your grandfather. Triumph where he failed. Become Hashe. A true Hashe. And wield the power of the lower in defense of Zul'Aman.
The next lower we need to try and find is Halazi, the lower that was bound to the Witherbark tribe. Zul'Jara then asks us to meet back up with her at the Shade Basin Watch in the north of the zone. She wants us to try and find a troll named Quel'Danas. They may be able to help us seek out the second lower that we need. We find Quel'Danas at the Shade Basin Watch, but she has more pressing concerns than an ancient ritual. The Vile Branch tribe of trolls have been waging war against the Witherbark, and this area is far from safe. Quel'Danas also warns us about a mysterious mist that has fallen over the nearby location of Nomazon. She believes the Vile Branch are hiding their crimes in the fog. Zul'Jara then asks us to drive back the Vile Branch and to free any Witherbark troll captives we can find before we attempt to communicate with the next lower. Whatever ritual we're walking into next, we need to make sure the area is secure first. Inside a nearby crypt, we cut through the Vile Branch and pull the captives free. But one of them reveals something troubling. The Vile Branch have been working with the Twilight's blade, capturing Witherbark trolls and turning them into soldiers for the cult. It is also revealed to us that the Vile Branch seemed to be just as confused about the hanging mists as we are, meaning that they might not be responsible for the fog. Those very mists in the area is making everything more difficult, so Zul'Jara tells us to light the shrines around Halazi's temple and press on. When we reach the temple, we find a group of Witherbark trolls sheltering inside. A young lower speaker tells us that the Lynx led them here to keep them safe.
Halazi will speak with you now.
Hit of the Amani, pride of their pride. You have pierced the veil and found me.
It was you who created the fog. You were trying to hide the Witherbark from the Vile Branch.
Despite Zul'Jin's betrayal, I silently watched over my Witherbark.
Halazi, Zul'Aman is under attack. I have come here on the path of the Hashi. Give me a trial so that I can win your favor.
Trial? There is no trial.
But we need...
You learned to prowl. You used cunning to see what is hidden. You saved my Witherbark children. No trial could earn my favor more. What was hidden has been revealed. There are further trials ahead. May you hear your prey before they hear you.
Zul'Jara then sends us to Witherbark Bluff to speak with the tribe's leader, hoping that earning Halazi's blessing will be enough to bring the Witherbark into the fight against the Twilight's Blade. The third lower we need to make contact with is Jan'alai, or if you're a troll, Jan'alai. And this one is a little bit different. Zul'Jin and Malakras, the old leaders, didn't just capture Jan'alai, they killed her. We then meet Zul'Jara and Liedrin at Jan'alai's temple, where the lower speaker hands us an ember, a smouldering fragment of Jan'alai's fire. Zul'Jara then sends us out into the forest to slay creatures known as Amazads. She wants us to use their energy to feed into this ember. When enough power has been drawn into the ember, we return. The lower speaker loses himself to the ritual almost immediately. leaving Zul'Jara to light the temple shrines herself.
The coal ready to burn now. Burn and purify. The shrines show the way.
Meet me at the shrine. I will take the call. My spirit's ready for any challenge.
I will stay here with Breck, just in case he begins to make sense, or decides to wander off.
At the first of the shrines, an apparition of her crazy grandfather, Zul'Jin, rises to face us. But of course, being the hardened champions we are, we make light work of it. At the second of the shrines, her brother appears before her. We do the same to that apparition too, and move on to the final one. The last of the trial turns inwards, asking her to face the internal shame she has carried with herself for the sins of her bloodline.
The coal! The egg! It is ready! She is reborn!
Zul'Jara, your grandfather betrayed and killed me, upset the cycle, plunged me into eternal darkness.
Forgive us, Xal'atath.
You have renewed me. Your trial has purified the line of Zul'Jin. A new day dawns. Such is the cycle.
May the inner fire of the Amani never die.
Zul'Jara has earned a moment to breathe. She asks us to return with her to Amani's village to check on preparations and also check on her brother, Zul'Jan.
The blood of those who died today will become the flood that washes the invaders from our lands.
When we return to Amanizar, we find the village in turmoil. Zul'Jan has returned after mobilizing Amani troops to retrieve more lightwood, all without his sister's approval. And the cost of this mission has been devastating. Countless soldiers lost in an operation she did not agree to. She then sends us to her uncle Kinduru, who is already trying to hold the community together in the wake of so much loss. Once we have helped him with the Fallen, we are then sent to Torntusk Overlook to find the leader of the Reventusk tribe. The temple of the final lower, called Nalarak, has been sealed for many years, and if we are going to reach the fourth lower, we are going to need help to get inside. With the Reventusk's guidance, we then push through the den and make our way to the temple of Nalarak. Like the others, the bear will not simply just grant us his favour. He puts us on trial first, calling us to fight against him to prove ourselves worthy of his blessing. We face him, and when it's over, Nalarak emerges.
We defeated Nalarak. Now what do we do? Nanea? But I...
Killed me? For years we have dreamed the dream of the dreamer. And now we have his mercy.
And you have my blessing, Cub of the Amani. To the ferocity of your Hashura's loyalty. My strength will be your strength, Zul'Jara. Now rise and receive my favor.
We will return to our people. And when you need us at Nalarak, we will be there.
At this point, all 4 lower of Zul'Aman have now returned and their favour has been granted to the Amani people. Zul'Jara then asks us to carry this good news back to Amanizar village, where Kinduru is waiting for us. We return to Amanizar to find Kinduru waiting with troubling news. Zul'Jan has disobeyed his sister again. He has taken the warriors to the front line again without her approval.
I couldn't stop him.
He took them all.
Perhaps we can catch up.
I don't understand. Even with the Loa,
The Loa! The Widowbog come to aid the Amani. The Shadowpine come to aid the Amani.
The Raventok come to aid the Amani.
The Loa! The back! All not be lost!
Let us take the fight to the Twilight's blade. For the Amani tribes! For Zul'Aman!
The Amani are now ready for war. We move to a location called the Broken Throne, where Mordoon and his forces have dug in. The path to him, though, is a bit more complicated. Void conduits are hindering the advance of the lower, and the Twilight's blade are entrenched across these ruins. We tear down the conduits, cut through their forces, and tend to any fallen Amani as we push forward.
We couldn't wait any longer for your Loa. If my hand forced yours, so be it.
We need to take the fight to Mordoon. Let's go!
All until we regroup at the foot of the Conqueror's Sanctum. At the top of the temple, the 4 lower combine their power to shatter Mordoon's void barrier.
Go forth, Zul'Jara. Take our blessing and crush your prey.
And it's here that we can finally confront him. The battle is long and hard fought, but Mordoon eventually falls. The war against the Twilight's blade in Zul'Aman has been brought to a dramatic end.
The battlefield is quiet. Your warriors must have finished off the remaining Twilight's blade.
We then return to Amanizar village for celebration, and we watch as Zul'Jara is appointed the new Hashe.
You risked much for us, Zul'Jara, daughter of Zarama. Our sacred bond, so long abused, is restored with the land, with your people.
Your faithfulness, your courage, has brought us all together, young Hashe.
Hashe. But
It is so, not by our decree, but by theirs.
Zul'Jara pulls us aside. On the way back from the Broken Throne, she tried to confront Zul'Jan about his recklessness, the unauthorized charges the soldiers lost needlessly as fodder to the Twilight's blade. Something in his response unsettled her, so she asks us to check on him. When we find Zul'Jan, the tension is clear for us to see. He still wants to see the Amani as rulers of the North.
We have different goals for the Amani. Zul'Jara focuses on growing and preserving the Amani tribes within Zul'Aman. I see the strength of the Amani, our tribe. We should conquer those around us. Zul'Jara doesn't understand. When Mordoon came, I saw my vision of the Amani coming to life. With the Lightwood, we would conquer the Twilight's blade, and then Eversong. Zul'Jara could not see my vision, but I saw no other way. The Loa? The Loa say our grandfather, the great Zul'Jin, betrayed them. But why believe them? or my doddering uncle, or any Gokinye. They abandoned us. They abandoned us. How do we know they won't do it again? I see your eyes are widening, Ashura. You're right. Forget what I have said. We have won. Zul'Jara has won. I will go back to the village and celebrate with my sister.
We carry what we have heard back to Silvermoon to report to Lor'themar. Whilst we have been away fighting the Twilight's blade across Zul'Aman, the Light Bloom has continued its relentless spread across the Eversong forest. We are then sent back to Fairbreeze village to find Orwenna. Orwenna then reminds us that the Rutani who have attacked the villages across Eversong came from her homeworld of Harandar. She's worried that if the Light Bloom has spread through the roots in the forest and down into Harandar, then the Haranir people are in danger. Orwenna asks us to join her on her journey, then opens a portal into the ground and we step through into something unlike anything we have ever seen before. We are standing amongst the roots of the Great World Tree, Emergence. We are soon introduced to one of Orwenna's people, Kupal. Before we head deeper into the roots, we are then tasked with securing 2 of their young and then just taking in the scale of where we have arrived.
Our goddess, Alnhara, once rested in the cradle roots above. But she was taken. What remains is the land of Harandar. The echo of her song and the radiance of her will.
We then descend down into a small village called Arator. It's here we find Orwenna already in discussion with a root warden named Ruia. She has asked the root warden if any signs of the Light Bloom has been observed across the region. But before we get any answers to that question, the root warden seems more concerned at the presence of us and the return of Orwenna.
This so-called Light Bloom is no real threat. It does not excuse your heresies.
It becomes immediately clear that Orwenna has broken long-standing traditions by bringing us here. Orwenna then asks us to give her some time to speak with the elders while we head to a nearby den, and before long we are summoned to stand before the council to learn our fate.
Enough of this! Show yourselves. I came here to speak out of respect. But if violence is your intent...
Respect? You threw that away long ago, Orwenna.
How many of our secret traditions have you broken, child?
Inviting those outsiders here, profaning this sacred place with their presence.
They hear the goddess's song as we do. They fight to save her. Is that not who we are anymore? Will you do nothing but skulk in these caves, lamenting the withered past? Goddess?
Clearly, the hand of Alnhara is upon you, child. But with it comes hubris, recklessness. Your pride endangers everything we've built here.
I hear her voice. Should I not follow wherever it leads?
Not if it leads you from us.
We are permitted to stay in Harandar, but only if we prove ourselves worthy. To do so, we have to successfully navigate through a bunch of trials at a place called the Den of Echoes. Inside this den, the walls themselves tell the story of the Haranir, their history, their hardships, and the path that brought them to this place deep beneath the roots of the world. The first of the trials shows the origins of the Haranir and how they lived below the trees of a great mountain. I believe the mountain being referred to here is most likely Mount Hyjal. Our guide also reveals that the Haranir have been living underground for tens of thousands of years, but at some point in time they lived on the surface, just like us. The second trial shows us that the Haranir became masters of hunting across their lands, learning druid-like shapeshifting abilities to help their people thrive in ancient times. The third trial then gives us information on the Haranir people. These were the ones who heard a song calling up from the roots of the world. They then journeyed towards the source of those echoes and ended up discovering Harandar. The fourth and final trial is known as the Gulf of Memories. If we survive this trial, then the Council will have no choice but to give us their blessing to stay in Harandar. We have to delve, if you know what I mean, we have to delve into the cavern to retrieve a fragment that can be used to witness the final piece to this puzzle. We end up fighting against a memory of an agent of the Old God's Black Empire called Multhal-Ul, I think that's how you say that. When we are fighting this aberration, it cries out the words, "She belongs to us, despair, and no oblivion," which is a reference to the fact that the Old Gods were after the world soul of Azeroth. They were hunting down the Haranir's goddess. The final memory vision is then shown to us by an elder Haranir named Hagar.
The Zurashah spoke of a great tragedy and shame. I have seen nothing to shame us.
You have not yet seen the journey to its end. Alhara's song was just an echo. The goddess was gone when they arrived. Without her, the land was falling apart. After all the trials and journeys, we hoped to find purpose. Instead, we found discord and death. We blamed the missing goddess. We blamed the land. We blamed each other. The goddess's absence was not a tragedy, but a trial. One we failed. When at last we found our way, the elders feared what would happen if we returned to the surface. So, they forbade it. But we can't stay hidden forever.
We then come around from the Den of Echoes to find ourselves in Har Mara, where Hagar explains to us that life down in Harandar has always been one of quiet coexistence. The Haranir, the Rutani, and even the Fungarians all living alongside one another in a peace that has held for as long as anyone can remember. If the Rutani are attacking the Eversong forest on the surface, the answers should be down here. Halduran then asks us to speak with the local Rutani about the Lightbloom, while Hagar encourages us to integrate into the village and prove ourselves as part of the community before asking too many questions. We then help out with daily operations whilst keeping our eyes open for any clues about the Lightbloom. What we find is reassuring at first. There's no signs of the Lightbloom, and the Rutani are behaving exactly as they should. But as we make our way back to Orwenna, a Fungarian named Powdercap comes rushing in with urgent news. Kuzat, a creature known for being completely docile, has gone berserk. We step back outside and the situation has changed entirely. Har Mara is infected by the Lightbloom. It's taken hold and infected Rutani are now turning on the village. Orwenna sends us to fight back the spread while Halduran asks us to cull back the plant life before it reaches further into the settlement. We deal with the infected Rutani, cut back the growth, and bring down the maddened Kuzat in the process. With the immediate danger contained, Orwenna then asks us to check on Ionka, one of the local Rutani villagers. She wants to make sure that she hasn't been touched by this infection. We make our way upstairs and find that Ionka is completely fine. When Halduran looks more closely at why she has avoided the Lightbloom infection, he finds the answer. She has a seed coated in something unusual. Orwenna then recognises this immediately. Aln Dust. The Aln Dust protected Ionka from the Lightbloom, and if it can do it to one Rutani, it might be exactly what we need to stop the infestation spreading further across the Eversong forest. We are then told that the elders will be reluctant to give us any of the Aln Dust, so Halduran takes the seed back to Silvermoon in hope that their magisters may be able to study it. Orwenna tells us that Ionka's seed came from the Rift of Arn. Before we go any further, we need to stop and have a look at what the Rift of Arn actually is, because it sits at the very heart of everything happening down here in Harandar, and even at the centre of this whole World Soul saga. When that World Soul, known to the Haranir as Alnhara was taken from her cradle deep within the middle of Harandar, the act was not a gentle one. The violence of that removal tore a wound into the earth, and that wound of course is the Rift of Aln. Inside of it, the echoing pains and screams of what happened there gave shape to formless, terrible manifestations, and those who enter into the rift are said to be driven into madness by those very cries. So when the Harati tribe first heard that call and followed it down to the depths of the planet, they found Harandar, they found the cradle. But they never found Alnhara herself, only the wound she had left behind and the remnant energies floating in the rift. But that then raises the question, who moved the world soul out of the cradle? And that answer was kind of given to us during the War Within in a quiet moment that was super easy to miss if you weren't keeping up with your weeklies. In the western quarter of Dornogal, we find a place called the Archive. It's the place where earthen memories are stored, catalogued, and then preserved. During the War Within, Icebreaker Brint and Dagran Thorasan II used the ancient transporter hidden within the archive to reach the hidden Titan vault known as the Vault of Memory. It was here that they uncovered a series of personal logs left behind by the Titanic Watcher Arcadus. Those logs revealed that the Titans had ordered the construction of something called the World Core, a dedicated installation built to house and study the World Soul directly, supposedly to observe and protect it from outside corruption, like the Old Gods or the Void Lords. But when we start to put two and two together with what we have learned down in Harandar, the Titans are most likely the ones who took Alnhara from her cradle and moved her to the World Core. Whether that was done out of genuine protection or for some other purpose entirely is a question this story hasn't quite answered yet. But what it does tell us is that the Aln dust we are searching for is essentially the residual energy left behind in the rift after Alnhara was taken, which also means the rift of course is the best place to find more of it. But it isn't just as easy as climbing on down there and picking up some more Aln dust. So we then head back to the den to make a new plan. And sorry for the mic drop segment of lore there. Back in the den, Orwenna keeps it real with us about the challenge ahead and reiterates how important this dust is. Aln dust is super rare, and the elders will not simply hand it over to us. She asks us to speak with the locals and see if anyone knows any other way to get hold of this Aln dust. We meet back up with Kupal, who warns us of the dangers that the Rift of Aln poses to the Harania people.
The violence left wounds that will not heal. Her screams of anguish give life to formless terrors and drive those who enter mad.
Kupal leads us towards a group of Harania that will be able to help us gain access to the rift. The Shulker, the Hunters of the Shadows, and the Protectors of the Harania, whose sole purpose is to guard their people from the effects of the Rift of Aln. We then meet Amarak, who then tells us that the Shulker people must sever their connection to their goddess entirely, just to endure what the rift does to the mind and the body of a Harania. He wants us to understand what we are walking into. He sends us into the Vale of Mists to tend to wounded guardians that are already suffering from the rift's effects. And while we are there, we are also asked to hunt down some rift creatures. After we slay them, these creatures will emanate Aln dust, and if we gather enough of that Aln dust, we'll be able to fashion a short-term filter that will allow Orwenna to survive inside the rift. We then return to Orwenna and help her complete the ritual that will create this filter. After preparations, we make our way inside the Rift of Aln.
This ritual only imitates the Shulker sacrifice. It is neither permanent nor perfect. We must hurry and find Amarak.
It's here that Amarak stops us again to tell us a Harania went missing in here not long ago, and that the rift will have already begun to madden him. He asks us to find him first. Amarak suspects he was searching for the same answers that we are. We find this Harania, subdue him in his mad state and send him back out. After that, Amarak tells us that they are preparing to take down a huge creature in the rift, and of course this is good news for us because it will have a lot of Aln dust. The target is a manifestation that they have already located, but before we can face it, we place protective wards around the area, cut down smaller rift creatures before they can coalesce into something worse, and also gather all-grown fungus to strengthen our position. Then we are ready to face this manifestation head on. We attack it, bring it down, and take the Aln dust from it before it dissolves back into nothing. Orwenna then asks us to meet back up with her at Harolnor. It's here that we're going to put this Aln dust to the test against the Light Bloom. But something else catches our attention. Ruia, the Root Warden, is nowhere to be found. His duty is to watch over the World Tree, and his absence at a critical moment like this is deeply unsettling. Orwenna then asks us to look for any clues as to where he might have gone. We search the village and discover 3 pages of notes written by Ruia. We then return to Orwenna in a cave, where they have managed to corner an infected Rutani, a perfect subject for our Almdus test. The test, just like we expected, works, and the infection in the Rutani begins to clear. After that, we read the information found inside of Ruia's notes. What begins as a research journal that is focused on finding a solution to the spreading light bloom gradually shifts in tone. Fascination turns to obsession and then becomes blame. He writes that the surface elves are the ones who must be responsible for the light bloom's spread into Harandar. And then the final entry is something else entirely. He describes himself as the chosen one and speaks of pruning the surface dwellers down to a more manageable size. He intends to use the light bloom against the elves as punishment. With this shocking news, Orwenna then tells us that we must travel to the roots of Shaladrasil and stop the light bloom spreading any further. We press on to the blinding bloom. The area has been devastated, and one lone survivor tells us what happened here.
All too easy!
Lightbloom infected Rutani have overrun the settlement and are out of control. Orwenna asks us to mount a petal wing and tear through the Lightbloom creatures from the air before the Haranir move in on the ground. We follow the order and then go in on foot ourselves, destroying spreading roots, recovering lost Haranir artifacts that have been swallowed by the growth, and begin cutting down the Rutani leaders that survived this aerial assault. After that, we return to the den and lay everything before the elders.
Shaladrasil's roots still stand.
How?
The Almdust. But we need more. The surface needs...
No! We will not leave our home defenseless.
We can gather more.
We cannot risk our people for outsiders.
Some branches can burn. Our calling is to protect the roots.
The last time I left, it was about my calling. This time it is about my friends. And I will protect them, with or without your aid.
After the meeting with the council, we meet back up with Halduron, who has arrived with a dire message. The Lightbloom is now frenzying across Eversong Forest, and we are needed back on the surface. We then take an emergency routeway back to Eversong to investigate the problem. We then surface into Lashra to find the Lightbloom in full frenzy. Orwenna reassesses immediately. Culling the creatures isn't going to be enough anymore. We need to kill them and then burn their bones as we go, cutting off any chance of the infection spreading any further. Halduron also wants us to close the Light Frenzy routeways leading up from Harandar, hoping to choke the spread of the Lightbloom at its source. But even after everything we throw at it, the Lightbloom refuses to stop. We then regroup with Halduron, and he makes the call to switch to Plan B. The Magisters have prepared a mana gem that's capable of overloading the nearby runestones. If we can get them set up in time, the Magisters can perform a ritual to destroy the runestones, burning the affected area to the ground, hopefully putting an end to the spread of the Lightbloom in Eversong once and for all. But before any of that Plan B can begin, Halduron needs every remaining ranger out of Lashra. We sweep the area, get everyone out, then take up position to defend the Magisters as the ritual begins. But just as it starts, the Root Warden Ruia turns up.
Naive Orwenna, this frenzy shall lap at the heels of our sacred home no longer. I have turned the bloom back on its creators.
I need time now, Romoth. This is no simple cantrip. Keep firing and try not to die.
The Root Warden has come to aid the Lightbloom. His betrayal against his own people is plain as day for everyone to see. The infected Rutani pour in behind him, and the elves begin to buckle under the pressure of this assault.
Eversong!
The Harati have brought the Arldust with them, so Orwenna asks us to spread it across Lashra, and wherever it lands, the frenzy will begin to lose its grip over the forest. Haldoran then charges into the Lightbloom himself and calls for us to bring down its largest creatures. We take them down, and the Lightbloom's numbers begin to collapse. After that, we hunt down Ruia in the Lightbloom, but before we can end it, he tunnels back down into Harandar and disappears.
No, not here. Not yet.
I can feel him fleeing through the roots. We have to.
Peace, Orwenna. Ruia will face judgment. Come, we should fall back to the Sun-Crowned Tree.
After Ruia's retreat, we fall back to Suncrown Village. The frenzy has successfully been stopped, and the Lightbloom is contained within Lashra. Although Ruia is still out there, the immediate Lightbloom threat to Eversong has now been broken. In the aftermath, Haldoran invites us and Orwenna to join him at the Gardens of Remembrance in Silvermoon City. When we arrive, Lor'themar is there waiting for us. He then formally extends an eternal welcome to Orwenna and the Haranir people, opening a portal in the gardens so they may come and go as they please. But despite this seemingly happy ending with regards to the Lightbloom, there is one piece of unfinished business. Ruia's movements have been tracked to the Blinding Veil in Harandar, and we are going out there to put a stop to him. We push through the Blinding Veil, fight our way into the heart and take down the Lightbloom lieutenants that are defending their leader. Finally, we find the Root Warden and face him for a second time. And this time, he doesn't escape. Ruia falls and his schemes are finally brought to an end. After the victory in the Blinding Veil, we leave Orwenna in Harandar and make our way back to Silvermoon to meet back up with Lor'themar. We return to Silvermoon and Lor'themar quietly acknowledges what he perhaps should have a bit sooner. Haldoran was right about the Harandar and the Lightbloom all along.
Lor'themar, what we saw out there, the light drove the Rotani to zealotry and madness.
Watch your tone, Haldoran. Blasphemy doesn't suit a man of your stature.
He was speaking to his Lord Regent.
We assume benevolent motives, but have seen the light used by the wicked before.
Without the light, your precious city, all of Azeroth would have been lost!
No one is questioning the light's grace, Turalyon, least of all the Sindori.
We seek to avoid its corruption, the light being turned against us. We are your friends, Turalyon, your family.
Family? Of course. The Lightbloom is an anomaly. But nothing that should diminish our faith in the light.
But the war against the Void hasn't paused for any of it, and the Vanguard of Light are struggling to hold back the Void at the Sunwell. We are sent to find Alonzus Fowl to see where we can help. When we find him, Alonzus is worried, and it's not just about the front line.
Such a troubled boy. That'll happen when your father leaves a gaping wound in your chest. Not to worry, I have a plan.
He calls a meeting at the Sunwell, and when we arrive, he sends us in to support the Vanguard's ritual using the power of his own staff. The ritual is exhausting and requires heavy focus and discipline, and the staff's holy power is drained in the process. Alonzus then quickly realizes that if the Vanguard are going to maintain this ritual and keep the Void at bay at the Sunwell, they are going to need more holy energy, more relics, more artifacts, more items infused with holy power that we can draw from. And he knows exactly where we can find more of them. Light's Hope Chapel. But retrieving holy relics isn't the only reason why we need to head south. There is also a second purpose behind our quest.
You're creating a bigger cloud with your moping than Xal'atath's Voidstorm. Speak your mind. Let it out before these feelings create a well of poison in your gut.
I'm not just upset that my father cut me down. I'm upset that when he did so, I saw the light shining brightly in his eyes. The same light that I am taught to revere. Under its guidance, he almost killed me.
So, you blame the light, not your father.
We are trained to wield the light as a weapon. Is that all that I am as a paladin? You founded the Silver Hand. You trained my father. I suppose I blame you as well. You crafted this philosophy of war. I followed your teachings until I burned myself with my own wrath.
Come with me on my little quest. I can't promise we'll change anything but how you feel.
And Alonsus hopes that being back among the Silver Hand's most sacred ground might begin to ease his pain. When we arrive at Light's Hope Chapel, we find it under attack from Lingering Scourge. With almost every paladin now committed to the defence of the Sunwell, Lord Tyrosus Maxwell has been left with hardly any forces to hold the line against the undead creatures. We push the Scourge back for them, and once the chapel is now secure, we head inside to gather what we need. But what Arator finds out inside stops him in his tracks. The holy artifacts here aren't legendary weapons that slayed thousands of Scourge, or great hammers that called down the light on the battlefield. They are just ordinary things, personal items, quietly cherished by the paladins who carried them.
The most revered paladins didn't draw their faith in the light from warfare. They fought to preserve what they valued most.
But despite this, we still need more relics, and Alonsus then tells us where we can find the rest of them. The Scarlet Monastery.
The light needs a lens to focus its power through the wielder. The light brings certainty, and it responds to one's conviction. But the light cannot distinguish between love and hatred.
So that is why the Scarlet Crusade claims it acts according to the light's will.
And why they were able to pervert my teachings of fellowship and protection into something you and I recognize so clearly as evil. The Scarlet Crusade was founded by a paladin I personally anointed. For a long time, I saw them as my own misjudgment made manifest. Perhaps I still do. However, the relics they possess will do for our purposes of bolstering the Sunwell defenders. It will be good to reclaim them.
After these discussions, we head out to the Scarlet Monastery and make our way inside the Scarlet Halls. The relics we need are still in the possession of the lingering Scarlet Crusaders, and of course we are going in to take them back. We move throughout the monastery, cut down what remains of the Crusade, and collect everything Alonsus came for. During the fighting, we confront one of the Crusaders' current leaders, Abbot Benthar. Even though we quickly take him down, it is what he says with his dying breath is what's truly intriguing.
The light will choose a new leader for our crusade.
Is this the fate of all paladins? Die a legend, or live to be consumed by zealotry and wrath?
No, Arator. My hope is that you can find a different path to follow.
After that, Alonsus portals us back to Silvermoon to continue aiding the rituals. Back at the Sunwell, we deliver these relics to the Vanguard of Light, and they are used to strengthen the ritual. It's not perfect, but it does buy us some more time. Even though we have been relatively successful here, Alonsus is still watching Arator, and he isn't satisfied with his personal inner journey. His faith in the light is still broken and diminished, so Alonsus asks us to meet him in Hammerfall in the Arathi Highlands, where he believes a paladin named Sunwalker Desco might be able to reach Arator in a way that ancient relics and Crusaders' chapels' walls cannot. We fly south and make our way to the Arathi Highlands. Getting an audience with Desco comes with the usual condition we always see. There are people in Hammerfall that are still recovering from the Red Dawn's attack that occurred during the events of the War Within. Desco asks us to help out across the settlement before anything else. We do what needs to be done, and then Desco allocates some time to sit with Arator. What he tells him is pretty simple, and perhaps that's the whole point of this.
Others are content to smite the wicked with a giant hammer. But allowing the innocent to suffer, that is the worst evil.
This isn't the type of thing the Silver Hand gets involved in, is it?
Alonsus has told me how he always intended for the Silver Hand to focus on this kind of service. But war changed what his paladins were called to do. Alonsus tells me stories of his first students. The legendary Uther was apparently quite the nurse. I would have liked to meet the man during that time.
My father was one of those students. He's never mentioned any of this to me.
I don't know the High Exarch well. I do know he's been to other worlds, far from here, fighting for an unimaginable amount of time. We're shaped by the events in our lives, but we can choose how we will live going forward. What type of paladin do you want to be, Arator? What type of person?
I want to come back here and help you once this war has ended. I think this is as much my calling as facing down the horrors of the Void.
Dezco is trying to shift something in Arator to help him see that purpose doesn't always announce itself. Alonzus tells us that there is one more item we need to find. The Sons of Lothar are operating in the Burning Steppes, and that is where we are heading next. When we then arrive in the Burning Steppes, we meet up with the leader of the Sons of Lothar, Danath Trollbane. The Dark Horde has been resurging across the region, and the Sons of Lothar need every hand they can get. The Dark Horde is a renegade faction of the Horde that took over the Blackrock Spire in the aftermath of the Second War between the humans and the orcs. Eitric then fills us in on what we are looking for in the Burning Steppes. We've been sent here to retrieve one final relic, but it is said to have been broken into fragments and is now currently scattered across the hands of the Dark Horde.
The only holy artifact here is...
Oh, you must be joking!
The Dark Horde will have taken the fragments, divided it up amongst themselves as a trophy.
So we set off to try and dismantle the effort across the Burning Steppes. We burn their banners, and take down their ogre lieutenant to retrieve the first fragment of the relic before heading back to the Sons of Lothar. Eitric then sends us to find Curdran Wildhammer at Blackrock Mountain to get a clearer picture of what we are up against here. Curdran doesn't wait long before sending us into Blackrock Mountain. The Dark Horde commander, Nagoth the Scarred, is believed to be holding another fragment of the relic we need. We go in, do the damage, and come back out with the second piece. Curdran then tells us to go and find Danath again, who has already gone ahead tracking the third fragment. It is around about this point that Arator begins to see what's actually happening here.
This whole expedition has something to do with my father, doesn't it?
Ah, a wee bit stuffy in here, isn't it?
This is Foul's third lesson. What have you old meddlers got planned for me?
Alonzus has been very deliberately taking him on a self-finding journey. Danath has tracked the Dark Horde's leader in the Burning Steppes, a warlord named Grazlar, and she has the final fragment that we need. We push into the Blackrock stronghold, tear through what remaining Dark Horde forces there are, and bring the warlord Grazlar down. The surviving forces scatter back into the hills as we retrieve the final fragment of this relic. With this last fragment in hand, Danath then tells us to meet the rest of the Sons of Lothar at the statue of Anduin Lothar at the base of the Blackrock Mountain. Before we set off though, Arator stops. He looks down at the fragmented relic that we have been piecing together across the Eastern Kingdoms and realises what it is. It is a shield that belonged to his father. At the statue, Curdran sits with Arator and tells him the story of what happened at Blackrock Mountain.
It was nearly 30 years ago, at the height of the Second War. The Battle of Blackrock Mountain. History books say we won the battle. All I remember is loss.
Your father, Taralian, was squire to Anduin Lothar, our leader.
Our brother.
Taralian seemed invincible. His shield, his resolve, never wavered. Until... his light failed.
No, it didn't fail. It turned into something else. Lothar's death broke something deep within Taralian. Something, lad, that's never really healed.
After hearing this story, Arator seems to have found a newfound respect and understanding for his father's behaviour. He wants to repair the shield and offer it to his father as a peace offering. we return to Silvermoon. Alonzus makes his way to find Turellian, while we help Arator reforge the shield, putting it back together piece by piece.
My son, Arator, I was hoping to... that we could...
Father, I know you'd never willingly hurt me, but in that moment, you lost control.
Could you ever forgive me?
I think it's time you forgave yourself. I know what happened the day Lothar fell. The guilt, the rage you've carried all these years. It's time to let it go.
My shield? How did you...
Take it up again. Be the paladin you were born to be.
I can't. That part of me died with Lothar.
But not all of you. Don't give up hope, Father.
My son, some things can't ever be redeemed.
After the interaction, Kurdran reads the room quite well and makes a quiet suggestion. It's time for a rest. He offers us a key to the Arcantina, a place that only the Sons of Lothar know about. We basically end up in a secret boozer with the Sons of Lothar, and of course the first round is on us.
So I said, if that's my griffin, who's sitting on the egg?
That doesn't make any sense. Arator, what are you going to do with Turellian's shield?
I've been giving it some thought. I'd like to hang it on the wall here, as a reminder. We can all break, but we can put ourselves back together, and emerge stronger for it.
Bah! Terrible idea! Worst I've ever heard. To have a fine piece of equipment like that, well made, well repaired, languish on the wall until it rusts? Oh, that's shameful.
He has a point, lad. A good shield like that yearns to protect a soldier, so they can protect others.
But it's not my shield.
Your father refused the legacy. It's yours if you want it.
It does feel right. I'll do it. Fowl told me that the Silver Hand was meant to protect the defenseless, during war as well as peace. Maybe I can help to demonstrate that service to others, as Desco has. This reforged shield can be a reminder to me as I protect Azeroth. Thank you. All of you. I won't let you down.
And with that, the soul searching finds its answer. After this pleasant trip down memory lane, Arator brings the harsh reality back into the focus. Quel'Danas still needs us. It is time to return to Silvermoon. We return to the Sanctum of Light and meet with Korath Mountainfist, who is clearly concerned that the mood across Silvermoon is getting worse. The prolonged presence of the Void and the strain of an ongoing siege are pushing the city's residents to a breaking point, and the tensions between the Silvermoon natives and the Vanguard of Light is beginning to boil over. It has already gone further than we thought it would. The Vanguard have taken Magister Umbric into custody, stating that his connections to the Void are dangerous to the Sunwell. Lothar sends us to help negotiate his release, because Umbric's research into the Voidstorm is too important to lose here, and every hour he spends in their custody is an hour he's not working on it. When we find him, the situation is a bit more complicated than a simple misunderstanding. Lothraxion, Chaplain Sen and Romath are all blocking him from approaching the Sunwell, and they're not entirely wrong to do so. The previous exile of Valeria Windrunner and the Void Elves from Silvermoon a few years ago was founded on that exact concern. The risk that Void-touched individuals pose to the Sunwell is real, and the Vanguard know it too. With Anduin's help, we then talk them down and Umbric is released.
Time and time again, again, Umbric and his Rendori have shown their loyalty to the Alliance, despite persecution and distrust. You do not have the time to imprison him, nor the grounds to execute him.
But Umbric
is fond of bold actions. Is that what I heard you say, Grand Magister? Now is the time for bold actions. Release him. I accept full responsibility.
Fine. On your head, be it.
So we then report back to Lorthamar. He then asks us to check on the rest of the Vanguard and confirm they are holding the line against the latest Void assault. Both reports come back and the conclusion everyone has been edging towards becomes unavoidable. Waiting for the Devouring Host to keep coming to us isn't working. It is time to take the fight to the Void. We meet Magister Umbric on the Isle of Quel'Danas at Magister's Terrace. His research has pointed him towards something significant. Hidden within the terrace is a relic known as the Cynosure of Twilight, and if his calculations are correct, it can serve as the key to open a gateway directly into the Voidstorm. Only thing is, we just have to get it first. We push into Magister's Terrace with Umbric at our side, where, predictably, he is not welcomed with open arms. The residents move to defend the terrace the moment we step inside. And then, with some weird irony, we discover that the upper terraces have already been taken by the Devouring Host anyway. We make our way through Magister's Terrace and we eventually bring down the Devouring Host. We take the Cynosure of Twilight, and then after retrieving the item, we return to the city. When the preparations are complete, Umbric uses the artifact to tear open a gateway into the Voidstorm. But this gateway isn't going to be the most sturdy of the portals that we use on a daily basis, so only a small strike team will be allowed to cross into the Voidstorm. And of course, we are handpicked for that journey. After preparing and a brief moment of rising tensions back in Silvermoon...
How dare you step into the Magister's Terrace, Umbric! You nearly destroyed us all! Just like I knew you would!
I have confidence in the strength of myself and my allies. Something you noticeably lack, Romoth.
Confidence? Arrogance! The same arrogance that transformed those poor souls who follow you into void monstrosities!
We are not monsters. We are in control. We are Rendori.
Enough. It was a risk to let them near the Sunwell, yes. But we will not win this war without taking risks. The Rendori have not wavered yet.
Yet. We shall see if this mission succeeds. You've always been reckless, Umbric. You leave calamity and ruin in your wake.
We step through the portal and enter the Voidstorm. The moment we arrive, the scale of what we are dealing with is immediately apparent. The energies inside are wild and unstable, and before anything else can happen, we need to establish our foothold. We help the Void Elves set up shade start loci across the area to stabilize conditions enough so that they can begin to start building a camp, while Lothraxion sends us after the nearby creatures prowling the Voidstorm as we work. With the camp now taking shape, we leave the Void Elves to continue setting up and head out with Arator and Lothraxion to survey the storm and look for anything we can use against it.
Look out!
Arator! Lothraxion? What the hell are you doing here?
Mother, thank the light. I knew you were alive.
It's too dangerous for you here, Arator. The Void devours everything it touches.
We have a mission here, Mother. And I'll stop at nothing to see it through.
I know. That's what terrifies me.
The Devouring Host operating inside the Voidstorm is being directed by a Void race known as the Dominar, and one of them has been located at a nearby nexus point. That is going to be our first real mission out here in the Voidstorm. We make our way over to that nexus point, and Lothraxion sends us in to clear out the strongest enemies before we can begin our full assault. While Alaria admits to us that she doesn't fully understand what these nexus points are or what purpose they serve, but she does ask us to retrieve 12 metal fragments from inside so she can begin working it out. When we return, Alaria now has a plan. If we can capture a Dominar and interrogate it, we might be able to learn something meaningful about the Voidstorm's structure. Lothraxion sends us out to find one, while they stay behind and modify the fragments we collected to use as a means of enslaving the chosen Dominar. We track down a Voidspawn known as Decimus, we corner him, and we use the modified fragments to bring him under our control.
I can see the position I'm in, and I can see yours. Your elite little cadre needs something I have. Information on Xal'atath's machinations.
We need nothing from the likes of you.
Stay your hand, Lothraxion. That thing is right.
You would trust such a creature?
Not at all. But I trust that it wants to survive. You will tell us all you know. And I will know if you lie.
Please, fair lady, you may call me Decimus. I am at your service.
With Decimus now a reluctant pawn for us, we make our way back to the ingress to see how the camp is coming along. When we return to the camp, Lothraxion and his scouts confirm what we didn't really want to hear. There are void-aligned Shadowguard ethereals operating in the Voidstorm. Before we deal with that problem, we need some more information from Decimus.
How can I deny you under a display like that? On the fringes of this world, you will find nexus points. They keep the storm churning.
The nexus points scattered all over the Voidstorm are what keep it churning. They are active anchors sustaining the energies of the storm above Quel'Danas. We then regroup at a nearby overlook where the ethereals have been spotted, and it is there that Decimus reveals the full picture to us. The true origins of Xal'atath, and how the ethereals came to pledge themselves to her void crusade.
But I'll tell you the truth no one living has heard. Once, long, long ago, I was mortal, like you. I lost my world, just like you. What I'm about to do ensures survival for all our kind. Survival and more is at my side. And you can lead them all.
Ilaria then sends us into the nearby Mana Forge to try and disrupt the Shadowguard operations by slaying some ethereals and destroying their machinery. Lothraxion then also tells us of a memory from a distant planet where his forces had a previous victory over a Mana Forge. He then asks us to collect 5 empty mana cells from around the nearby Mana Forge. We have a feeling we know what these are going to be used for. We push deeper into this forge, and on one of the bodies of the fallen ethereals, we find a hollow key. Ilaria suspects that this is used to encrypt communications, and asks us to try it on the consoles in the Ethereum refinery while we are down here. At the same time, Lothraxion wants us to gather arcane remnants from the ethereals, fuel for the fire we're going to bring this place down with. Ilaria's instincts are then correct. When we use this hollow key on the consoles, intercepted conversations between the ethereals and Xal'atath begin to play back to us.
The Shadowguard risked everything to strengthen the devouring host. Should Windrunner discover what we are doing,
then it would be in your best interest to eliminate her, wouldn't it? You've let her scurry around for far too long as it is.
Then the final message decrypts, and it's a bit more shocking.
Windrunner will not prevent me from turning the Naru to the void. I will claim the power I was promised. They've taken a Naru prisoner? We cannot allow these monsters to possess a being of pure light.
The Naru are beings of pure holy energy and can be described as living embodiments of the light itself, travelling across dimensions and dedicating their existence to bringing peace to mortal civilizations, and also usually standing against the forces of the void. But the caveat is that they are not invulnerable to corruption. A Naru can be slowly broken down and twisted from a beacon of holy energy into a void-touch shadow of what it once was. It's happened before on a few occasions. A good example here is with a Naru named Lura, who was captured and imprisoned on the orders of the Demon Lord Kil'jaeden. That particular story ended with Ilaria Windrunner absorbing Lura's darkened essence into herself, a moment that shaped who Ilaria is today, and one that makes her presence in this confrontation a bit more important. Lothraxion doesn't hesitate when he hears the report of the captured Naru. If they really are holding a Naru captive, it will be at the nexus point of Midar. When we arrive, we see it with our own eyes, the Naru suspended and helpless behind a void shield. Lothraxion then sends us down to place the now charged mana cells around the nexus point, while Ilaria asks us to cut down Nexus King Salhadar's lieutenants and begin weakening the ethereal forces from the inside. It's at this point where Decimus gives us the edge we needed. The Devouring Host equips its soldiers with keystones that are capable of overriding ethereal technology, including the shield holding the Naru. We go back out, find the fragments of a keystone that we need, restore it, and bring it back to Lothraxion, who then uses it on the console. Decimus was right, and the shield comes down around the Naru. But the Void aren't finished yet. They make one last stand as the Naru begins turning to the dark side. We are then forced to confront it, and Ilaria throws everything she has at it.
He will see the monster you are, and you will drag him into the darkness.
I never wanted you to see this. We failed.
After Terra has been defeated and the mana cells around the nexus point have been ignited, Arator makes the call to retreat and we fall back to the Void Elf camp so Ilaria can rest after that insane fight.
Careful.
The dark Naru within you, Mother. I never understood just how exhausting it must be to maintain control over it, or how lonely it's been for you, protecting us from it.
For you, my son, I could endure anything. I know at times I've been somewhat cold.
Stop. Don't apologize for...
I need you to hear me, Arator. Understand, it's not the Naru within me that creates the distance between us.
It's the fight. I know, but you need to understand. You can't protect me from what's out there. And you can't scare me away either. My fight is by your side. What comes, Mother, we will face together.
While he stays with her, he asks us to check on the Void Elves and see how their preparations for the wider fight in Voidstorm are coming along. When we report back to Arator, we walk into the middle of something that has clearly been building for a while. Lothraxion and Decimus are at each other's throats. The tension between the two is finally spilling over. We step in before it goes any further, and Ilaria reminds everyone what is at stake out here. Decimus is too valuable to lose right now to an old, ancient cosmic grudge. She offers him a more permanent place among their ranks. For now.
Gave myself away, did I?
You seek power, Decimus. Xal'atath will not give you what you want, but her defeat might. Join us.
Truly fascinating. You continue to defy expectations.
This beast is off its leash. Naru, dead. Now we're to trust this monstrosity.
No, but we need them. They've had every opportunity to betray us.
And they will. Have you learned nothing from Karesh? What did your mentor's trust in the Void bring him?
Careful! The Void never offers fair choices. Locust Walker understood that better than anyone. After his demise, I asked myself again and again what I could have done to prevent it. But then I came to realize what Locust Walker knew from the start. It didn't matter that Xal'atath was always going to turn on us. If the only way to stop one monster is to work with another, what choice is there?
We fought together for 1,000 years! Do you not trust me?
I do, Lothraxion. When Decimus does betray us, I trust you to put them down.
Freeing Decimus here turns out to be the right call. He then tells us the information that we needed. The Voidstorm can be brought down, but only from inside one of the Nexus points. But he also tells us that getting inside these Nexus points isn't just as easy as walking in. We need something called the Mantle of Predation. With that info, he sends us to the Howling Ridge to learn more. When we arrive, we realise what Decimus has actually done for us here. He has allowed us to access a Dominar Void Camp. Once we get settled in, if you can call it that, he gives us a fuller picture of what is going on, letting us scout out the Voidstorm using his own creature to understand what we are dealing with. He also makes something very clear to Lothraxion.
The key to weakening the storm is an artifact known as the Mantle of Predation. With it, you may enter a Nexus point and simply shut it down. Doing so will nullify the others in a cascade.
Why merely shut down the Nexus points? We should raise them from within.
And cause an energy surge that would obliterate precious Silvermoon? Shut them down safely. Spare your poor city.
The mantle is being kept at the Obscurian Citadel by a figure named Lord Terminus. But conveniently for us, Terminus is currently out in the Voidstorm on operation, leaving the mantle in the Citadel completely unguarded. So that is our next move. We make our way to the Citadel. Outside of it, the Void Elves brief us on the facility before we go in. Arator wants us to disrupt operations from within, while Decimus asks us to cut down Void entities in the trenches, hopefully drawing out their lieutenant, Terentia. Once she comes out, Alaria then sends us down to confront her and take her sigil, an item which will allow us access to the Citadel. We then fight Terentia through the trenches before she tries to flee. At that point, Decimus cuts her down.
Stirring. Some friendly advice. Never trust a Dominar who feigns subservience.
We consume her sigil, an item which will help us access the Citadel and use the Mantle of Predation. And Decimus tells us we are halfway to unlocking the Mantle. After that, we then push up into the upper Citadel to regroup with the others. We arrive to find Alaria and Lothraxion in the middle of a heated argument. His recklessness on the battlefield out in the Voidstorm has cost them Void Elf lives that didn't need to be lost. She then sends us back out to try and salvage the operation, using the Void creatures against one another, while Arator asks us to find the Void Elves that are still missing out there. Before we leave though, Lothraxion gives us his own task. Find the next Dominar lieutenant that needs to be slain, and take his sigil. We carry it all out, consume the Dominar who was called Severum's sigil, and return to the Citadel. Now with both sigils consumed, we are ready for the Mantle of Predation. We go to claim it, but Terminus appears before us.
Away for but a moment, and the vermin move in. You were right to alert me, Decimus.
I warned you. This was always their plot.
To keep our magnificent lord entertained, friends. I'd so hate for him to lose interest.
Miss, why wait until now to betray us?
Decimus had been playing us all along. Before any of us can regroup, Alaria sends us out to clear the Void forces and secure the arena that we now find ourselves in. In the chaos, Terminus turns us against each other, and then we are forced to fight Alaria directly in this Dominar's game.
I've seen you fight, champion. I know you can do more.
Then, at the moment Terminus moves to strike, Decimus attacks him from behind.
Xal'atath is so fascinated by you mortals.
Decimus, my mantle. It suits me, yes? Now for the victory feast. As for my dear guests, pardon the deception. You made an exquisite distraction. A distraction? I will annihilate you!
Lothraxian, hold! We have what we need to finish this.
And you still need me. Only a Dominar can use the mantle. Surely I mentioned that. How many betrayals before you see the truth? He is playing us for fools!
Decimus is not our enemy.
You are blind. You are all blind. I will tear the Nexus points apart and end this accursed storm once and for all.
With the mantle now in hand, the double cross completes itself, but Lothraxion is furious at the actions of Decimus. He storms off towards the nearby Nexus point, intent on destroying it. And in that moment, we also get the most unsettling frame of the entire Midnight expansion. After Lothraxion storms off, Decimus reiterates his warning about the Nexus point.
If he damages the Nexus point, the resulting energy surge will obliterate your precious Silver Moon.
We need to stop him. Mela, get the others back to Howling Ridge.
Ilaria then tells us that we need to stop him at any cost. She asks us to regroup at Nexus Point Zenus. When we arrive, Lothraxion has already made his way inside.
Now his zealotry threatens all of Silvermoon.
I've seen this before. In the Scarlet Crusade, in Father, even in myself. Given who Lothraxion was before he embraced the light, maybe his conviction was the only thing that could anchor him in a place like this.
Perhaps. For 1,000 years, I saw the light bolster the resolve of its champions. But it also changed them. Lothraxion was obviously no exception, and neither was Turalyon.
Ilaria has no choice but to send us in after him. We fight through his defenders and finally confront Lothraxion himself in a battle that only ends one way.
You will see.
When we emerge back out into the Voidstorm, Decimus then utilizes the power of the Mantle of Predation and destroys the Nexus Point, significantly weakening the Voidstorm in the process.
I knew it would work.
You are a marvel to me, Arator. Please know how proud I am of the man you've become.
Mother, I
feared that you coming to this place, fighting these horrors, would wear you down, harden your heart, as it has mine.
That could never happen. I have something this darkness could never touch. All those years alone, Mother, I finally have what I always longed for. You.
As the dust begins to settle, the Vanguard of Light arrives into the Voidstorm, reinforcing what remains of our small force. Ilaria tells us that she will break the news of Lothraxion's death to Turalyon herself, and instead she sends us back to Silvermoon to update Lorthamar on everything that has happened inside the Voidstorm. We barely have enough time to catch our breath back in Silvermoon before Lorthamar sends us straight to see Lady Liadrin at the Sunwell. When we arrive, she is having an argument with General Bellamy of the Vanguard of Light. Committing everything they have to push into the Voidstorm is reckless, and this will leave the Sunwell exposed. She sends us to check in on the commanders holding their position at the Sunwell, and once that is done, we are sent straight back into the Voidstorm. Back inside the Voidstorm, the war between the Vanguard of Light and the Devouring Host has erupted, and the Ethereals are tearing through the Vanguard's lines. If we are ever going to reach the Voidspire, the heart of Xal'atath's assault on Azeroth, we need to push these forces back first. Turellian asks us to use Umbric's flying machine to go out and assess what we are actually dealing with here, and the situation isn't good. Vanguard commanders are being captured, Void Elves are being seized by the Ethereals, who are then draining their energy into the ethereal weaponry. And the whole front line is beginning to buckle under the pressure of the Devouring Host. Umbric then sends us into the Ethereum Overcroft to hit them where it hurts, freeing the captured Void Elves, dismantling their weapons, and clearing the way for a more coordinated assault. With the ethereal weapons now powered down, the skies begin to clear and open up. Turellian puts us in the cockpit of one of the Vanguard's warframes, and we tear through the Voidstorm's defenders from above, buying the ground forces the breathing room that they needed. When we land, Turellian sends us to find Arator, who is on the other side of the camp dealing with the wounded. When we reach him, he takes us back out onto the battlefield to pull whatever survivors we can back to safety. And where the soldiers are already gone, he asks us to recover any keepsakes we can find on them, something that their families can remember them by when this is all over. With that done, Arator sends us to find Ilaria. She has splintered off to deal with the Void Beasts stalking the Vanguard officers across the battlefield. She has been tracking them and tells us what she has worked out. These creatures can tear open temporary void portals at will and disappear through them, making them almost impossible to hunt down. We join her in a nearby gorge and follow a trail until we find one of these void beasts with a survivor still in its jaws. Of course, it portals away the moment we close in, but we somehow manage to follow it through that portal before it disappears, and we find the soldier on the other side. We get them out, and on the way we take down the patriarch of the Void Creature Pack, cutting the immediate threat off for the time being. With the Void Beasts dealt with, the ethereal weapons powered down, the skies cleared, and the Vanguard officers now in a safer environment, the Vanguard of Light now has a much stronger foothold across the Voidstorm. Ilaria sends us back to the base camp to report to Turellian. When we arrive, we walk in on a quiet conversation between him and Ilaria. Turellian is telling her about the moment at the Amani Pass and how close he came to killing their son, Arator. But despite this family drama, the Vanguard of Light can now begin preparations for an assault on the Voidspire. After days of preparation, the Vanguard of Light make their move, and the assault on the Voidspire begins. We charge into the heart of it alongside the Vanguard, initially cutting through two of the Voidstorm's most powerful lieutenants, Imperator Avazian and Voracious, all before we face the fallen king of the Ethereals himself. Salhadar then falls, and the ethereal presence in the Voidstorm is broken. We then press further into the Voidspire, battling through the corrupted clutchmates of the Red Dragonflight, all before something stops us in our tracks. War Chaplain Sen, General Bellamy, and Commander Lightblood, all revered leaders in the Vanguard of Light, soldiers who we just charged into the Voidspire alongside, have surrendered themselves to the Void. We then turn to face the Void-corrupted trio and eventually bring them down. But as the Vanguard members fall, Xal'atath appears before us, taunting Ilaria to chase her into the Void. Ilaria goes after her without hesitation, and of course we have to follow them through the portal. We emerge at the crown of the cosmos, the very peak of the Voidspire, where Xal'atath has already captured Ilaria. The Vanguard leaders charge forward to help, but are thrown back to the edge of the platform in an instant. With Arator and Turellian pinned down, the fight to save Ilaria is now up to us. We battle through the last of the Devouring Host and then against a void-corrupted version of Ilaria herself, her dark form turned against us by Xal'atath's power. Turellian and Arator finally break through and pull Ilaria free, but that's all before Xal'atath stuns them both for a second time.
Hang on, my love. I'm here.
Touching. But you're far too late to save anyone. And now, the moment of truth. I'll die before I serve you. Serve me? Despite all we've been through, it was never actually you that I required. Beautiful. Behold! The dark well opens!
Mother! Father!
The tether worked. But we've lost them all. We've lost everything.
Arator's parents, for the second time in his life, have disappeared into nothingness. We return to the streets of Silvermoon and deliver this dire news to Lor'themar. With the Sunwell now transformed into the Darkwell, void creatures are already swarming across the Isle of Quel'Danas again. Lor'themar then sends us over to see if we can find any survivors from the turning of the Sunwell. When we return, we find Arator and Lor'themar locked in an argument over what comes next. They are trying to find some form of direction in this wreckage, and it's Arator who finds one. He suggests they should reach out to the other elven civilizations of Azeroth to call on their ancestral kin for help in the fight against Xal'atath. We leave the debate in Silvermoon behind and set off for Belameth, the new capital city of the Night Elves of the Alliance. When we arrive in Belameth, we find some formidable faces waiting for us. Maiev Shadowsong, Jared Shadowsong, and of course Chandris Feathermoon. The Night Elves are guarded at first, but after hearing the Blood Elves' plea and the dangers the devouring host posed to the Sunwell, and of course the rest of Azeroth, Chandris agrees to commit their armies to the defense of Silvermoon. But before they can march towards the fight, their ancients must be awakened. The Ancient of War, the Ancient Protector, and the Ancient of Law all need to be woken up so that they can guide the Kaldoroi into this fight. What follows can only be described as an extended series of chores, but eventually the Ancients rise and we return to Chandris with the job done. Before we leave, Chandris pulls Lor'themar aside and makes a controversial suggestion.
A corrupted Sunwell is an existential threat that cannot be ignored.
Both our peoples have moved beyond the conflicts of the past, a hopeful sign for the future.
However, this marks the third time that evil has descended upon Quel'Danas and placed our world in peril. Should we survive this crisis, I ask that you do not attempt to reignite the Sunwell. It is time to find a different path.
You said there were no conditions.
None for our army to join the battle. But the Sunwell invites catastrophe and conflict. For the sake of your people, you must let it go.
You can't ask that of me. The Sunwell defines us. Without it, we were nothing. Weak and powerless.
We Kaldoroi once faced a similar fear. Losing our immortality was a cruel fate, and those who sought to regain it committed terrible crimes. So believe me when I say that I know how you feel. But I also know that your people's resilience far eclipses their reliance on the Sunwell.
I will consider it.
We then head back to Eversong to meet Arator and his aunt Verisa, who are preparing to make their case to the Quel'Danas. Verisa carries a visible sadness with her. It's the weight of an old, strange relationship between the High Elves and the Blood Elves. The Blood Elves and the High Elves are physically and biologically the same, but politically they are very, very different. Before she can attempt to walk back into Silvermoon, she asks us to help her find some small measure of peace. She also wants to bring a gift along with her, relics of the late High Elven King, Anasterian Sunstrider. She tells us that if these are offered to Aethys and the Sunreavers as a gesture of goodwill when the High Elves return to the city, the Blood Elves may grant them safe passage once again. One thing I noticed here is that Arator has just lost his mother, and Verisa has just lost her sister. Ilaria is dead, and neither of them seem particularly bothered right now. With Veresa's tasks now complete, the Quel'Danas prepare to re-enter Silvermoon for the first time in years. She asks us to ride with them, hoping that our reputation in the city will help it all run smoothly. The relics are then given to Aethys, and it works. The Sunreavers grant the High Elven Silver Covenant passage back into the city.
This is far from over, Windrunner. But for the sake of our High King, you may enter Silvermoon.
Thank you, Aethys.
We then regroup with all the leaders in the Sanctum of Light, where plans on how to deal with the Darkwell and the Devouring Host are being formed. Arator then quietly points out almost all of the elves have answered their call, except for the Shaldorei. Their leader, First Arcanist Thalyssra, is already at this summit, and after some discussion, she asks us to travel to Suramar. The call to arms that she sent home has gone unanswered, and she wants to know why. When we arrive in Suramar, her Seneschal has no idea what we are talking about. Seneschal Ullen blames the miscommunication on issues with their mana supply, suggesting that the message simply never got there. But Thalyssra isn't buying that excuse. Something is off about this situation, and she asks us to look into it a bit more. As we investigate, it soon becomes clear that the Twilight's Blade have infiltrated Suramar, and Seneschal Ullen may not be everything he appears to be. We rush back to confront him, and when we arrive, we find the real Ullen has been slain and replaced by an imposter. The Twilight's Blade has been quietly tampering with Suramar's mana supply ever since they infiltrated the city. If the Twilight's Blade manage to successfully redirect Suramar's mana flow, the Shaldorei will weaken, and the magical sustenance their people depend on will be drained. She informs us that there is only one place where they would be able to achieve this goal: the Dark Way. Thalyssra then sends us into the Dark Way to take out the infiltrators, recover mana crystals that have been displaced, return them to their correct positions so the mana flow is restored, and then finally bring down the ogre behind the impersonation. We then fight through the Dark Way, set things right, and then confront the ogre, who of course doesn't survive this encounter. With the mana flow restored and the Twilight's Blade operation inside Suramar now dismantled, the Shaldorei are free to mobilize their armies towards Silvermoon. Thalyssra asks us to return to the city, where the leaders are waiting to plan their next move in the fight against the Void. But soon enough, our planning is then cut short as word reaches us that Xal'atath and her devouring host have seized the bridge to the Isle of Quel'Danas and pushed into Silvermoon's harbour. Arator then sends us straight to the front line. We fight our way through the advancing Void to reach the naval fleet, which is already under heavy assault. Veresa tells us that the cavalry can't provide air support until the ethereals have been dealt with. We take out the ethereal cannons and signal to her to bring the strike down on the Void creatures below.
Skies are clear! Mount up!
We push back to Arator and the others at the bridge. Thalyssra steps forward first and begins dismantling the Void shields blocking our path, and the combined forces of Azeroth march onto the bridge, driving the devouring host back with everything we have. At the far end of the bridge, the armies of Azeroth now come together in one final charge. The assault on the Darkwell can begin.
Why spend your last moments in agony? I've already won.
All you've done is unite us.
I would never miss an opportunity to raid the Sunwell. The goddess has drawn a path for you.
We will not let Xal'atath and her devouring host take this city! For Azeroth! For
the Sunwell!
We march onto the Isle of Quel'Danas, but we are soon stopped in our tracks by Bello-Ren, son of the famous Phoenix Allah, and raised as an eternal protector of Quel'Danas. The Phoenix has watched over the Sunwell ever since he hatched, but when the devouring host swept across the Isle, the lifelong purpose of the Phoenix was twisted against us. Now corrupted by the void, Bello-Ren now stands between us and the Darkwell. We bring him down just outside of the entrance and then we push through towards the Darkwell. Inside, the recently freed Dark Naru of Lura waits for us in there. The very Naru essence that Xal'atath tore out of Valeria's body at the Crown of the Cosmos now stands as the last guardian of the corrupted Sunwell. The battle that follows with Lura is intense and disorientating, but in the end, Lura falls. And the moment it does, Xal'atath appears.
You Windrunners. You just don't know when to lay down and die.
We Windrunners are just stubborn that way.
You? I honestly didn't factor for you.
Death comes for all, Xal'atath. Even your wretched kind.
We'll finish this another time, perhaps.
I thought you said you could never leave the moor.
There are ways, nephew. But they do take their toll. Regardless, you told me that Silvermoon was in peril. That it needed its Ranger General one last time.
Sylvanas, if the Maw cannot hold you, then maybe there's a way back for you. Back to us.
My penance, my true work has only begun, little sister. The Shadowlands are not at all what they seem. I cannot rest until I've uncovered the truth. Still, I hope to see you both again. Before the end begins.
After a few days since the Darkwell went silent, we returned to Lor'themar in Silvermoon, but the mood has shifted entirely. Today is a day of celebration. The Void has been pushed back, and the Darkwell is going to be cleansed. But before we can cross onto the Isle of Quel'Danas, there are two moments that Lor'themar wants us to witness first. We then find Grand Magister Romath in Murder Row. He is returning Magister Umbric's belongings and formally granting him access to a Void research office. It is a quiet but significant gesture. The Void Elves now have a permanent research facility in Silvermoon, a space of their own to continue their work. But of course it's more than just a room, it's an acknowledgement of their alliance. Then we head out to the front gates where Aethys Sunreaver is waiting for us. Verisa is already there when we arrive and she tells us that the Sunreavers and the Silver Covenant have reached a mutual agreement, formalizing a new peace between the two forces in something called the Silver Sun Compact. She asks us to stay and witness the formation. With both of these wholesome moments now witnessed, we then return to Lor'themar, who asks us to join everyone else at the Darkwell. We speak with the Elven leaders, confirm that we are ready, and the ritual begins.
We founded this kingdom as exiles, in search of a new home. But when we lost the Sunwell, when we nearly lost everything, in fear and grief, we cast out our own people, made exiles of them. We were foolish. Never again. And now, together, we consecrate this, not as the Sunwell, but as something new. The Dawnwell. Let it represent the moment when night becomes day, and the moon meets the sun. Where light and shadow exist in perfect balance. Let this mark a new dawn for our people. For the kingdom of Quel'Danas, our high home.
And there we go. What began on the edges of the Sunwell now comes full circle and concludes at the edge of a new well and the start of a new era for the Elves of Azeroth. But of course, we can't ignore the fact that Aleria is gone, Tyrellian is lost in the void, and Xal'atath is still out there. The Dark Heart served its purpose, the Voidspire has now fallen, but yet Xal'atath has slipped away again. What she plans to do next is a question that will define the rest of this World Soul saga. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This has been the full story of World of Warcraft Midnight, and of course that is so far. If you want to go further and relive the War Within storyline so that you are fully up to date with everything going on right now, you can click this video here to check it out.